We're glad you're here. You ready? Okay. Yeah, that's about the sentiment in there. Yeah. Okay, we want you to stay seated until a couple songs in, and we'll tell you when to stand up. Just stay seated and enjoy the children as they perform for us this morning. All right?
There's no God like Jehovah. 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 Holy comes, riding on the clouds, shining like the sun, and the trumpets call.
smartphone, whatever device that you carry with you, we open to the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. We're going to look at where the wise men meet Jesus, all right? You're going to be familiar with the story. You may even seem bored with it just a little bit. Please, even if it's not the first time, act like it's the first time you've heard it. But I've got at least three, I think, remaining truths that are found in this moment that will remind us and really encourage us this morning about this miracle and about this moment in history, this time called Christmas. Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. While you're finding your way there, also let me say that we are technically not going to Myrtle Beach. All right, ladies, we're not going to Myrtle Beach. I said Hawaii. You would think that Hawaii would have stuck last week, but the Myrtle Beach one stuck, and so we began to get messages, when are we going to Myrtle Beach? I was just being facetious, funny, joking, silly, but my wife said, hey, correct that this morning, so I want to make sure that I correct that. We are planning, praying, looking at things, different avenues, blah, 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 but there it is, okay? You with me? All right, okay. Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Be on the screen if you don't have one with you for no more dilly-dallying. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea. What does Bethlehem mean? It's funny, I got asked this at a Christmas party, secular Christmas party. You might know that the pastors that were there get asked this question. House of bread, house of bread. It's not a part of the sermon, I just thought I'd ask you. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea. Shouldn't it be that it's the house of bread, being he's going to be the bread of life? Anyway, during the reign of King Herod, about that time, some wise men from eastern land arrived in Jerusalem asking, where is the newborn king of the Jews? We saw the star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. King Herod was deeply disturbed. He's the Grinch in this story, by the way. King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law and asked, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? In Bethlehem of Judea, they said, for this is what the prophet wrote, and you, O Bethlehem, the land of Judea, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah, for a ruler will come from you who will be the shepherd for my people Israel. Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time that the star first appeared. Then he told them, go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him too. Now, did he really want to go worship him? No, you guys hopefully are not jaded by the story. You know the story. He didn't want to go worship him. He wanted to kill him. He wanted to be top dog. It was all about him. We live in a society that's still all about that individual person, okay? And so he's like, go find him so that I can go worship him. Verse 9, after this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. And they opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. Now, let's just do a little bit of setting in context before I give you application of this text, okay? Now, we understand, I've already said it, Herod is the Grinch in this story. He's an older man, ruthless tyrant. I mean, just an evil man. And he absolutely did not want to lose his kingship. He absolutely didn't want it to be moved from his lineage to someone else. And so it was out of jealousy and spite, and we understand the story. And so it's funny, he brings all the religious guys in of the day, and he asked them, well, where is it supposed to be? And they say Bethlehem. Then that confirms that they had come this way. The wise men, or the magi, had come this way because they had seen the star. They had known this. Now, if you go all the way back to Daniel, you'll know that they were the wise men were there. He talks about them. They would listen to his teaching. So you understand, you go hundreds of years later, here we have it coming to fruition, the prophecy, Jesus being born. And so he calls them in and he goes, I want you to go find him, and I want you to tell me so that I can go there and worship him too. So he sends them on their way, and they follow the star. Now, we all know, and just let me remind you, that the wise men were really elite of the society. They were made up of super smart individuals. They were philosophers. They were mostly astrologists. They were really Gentiles. They were pagans.
they not necessarily would believe. They were definitely not Jews. They really, for the most part, their religious ways had to do with the stars, of course, and the zodiac and things of this nature to kind of bring it into a vernacular that you would understand. And so they would just go by the signs and the moving of the stars and the moon and all this good stuff, okay? And so he calls them in. He sees that. He confirms it. He sends them on their way. And so they head out. And it's really cool that they go, they travel. Now, understand that when they find Jesus, he's not a baby anymore. Now, he's not grown or anything like that, but it took them several days to get there, okay? We understand that. Now, I listened to a guy this morning who was talking about someone was calling him out about, this is not when Jesus was born. December is not. This is not the time of the year. And I'll go to church when you can prove to me that. And listen, I don't care. I just know he was born. You understand? And so we're going to roll with it, okay? And so we understand that some of the story, we get traditional meaning to it. And so we really take away and out of context about how long it would have taken them to get there. Now, we also believe that there was just three. And the reason we believe that traditionally is because there were only three gifts mentioned there. Some people will say there were more than three. I don't know. For lack of being a simple guy, I'll just say there were three because they got the three gifts there. Either way, they go to find him. They go on their way, and they actually meet him. They go in and find where Jesus is, and it's very interesting to me that even in the 21st century, all these thousands of years later, that when you get in the presence of God, the same reaction happens. It says they were filled with joy. It literally says that they bowed down, they fell down before him, and they worshiped him. When you get in the presence of God, it is overwhelming. It is. That's why sometimes people fall out. They get so overwhelmed by the presence of God. That's why sometimes it changes our language. We get so overcome with Jesus and being in his presence. And so they find him. And this whole series, Miracle, was really based upon how Jesus come to us so that we would know God. Because he said, and he told his disciples that in John 14, if you would have known me, you would have known the Father, because he and I are one. And so he takes them from a legalistic set of rules and laws and rituals and religion in the Old Testament and brings it to a relationship with a living, breathing God that is not afar off, but has come to us. And so I've tried to show you different encounters and what they discovered. And I want to show you at least three abiding truths this morning that these wise men show us. And no, one of them is not that wise men still follow Jesus, okay, or seek Jesus. No, that's not my message. I want to give you at least three abiding truths. The first one is this: if wise men can find Jesus, so can you. I told you, real simple outline. If wise men can find Jesus, so can you. Just think about all they had to overcome. I've told you a little bit about them. Not religious, not necessarily a spiritual bunch of people. They not only was it that there was all kind of barriers in the way, that the distance they would have had to travel, the difficulty in that travel. You know, they didn't have taxis, they didn't have $1-800 camel. They just did not have those kind of things, right? So great distance to journey. The difficulty. Now I'm setting it all up, being a little bit funny. The thing about the distractions along the way. And how does that sound in our lives? I mean, you see, I wanted to show you that if they can find him, pagan, all right? If these wise men can find Jesus, you and I can still find Jesus. We often find ourselves beat down or distracted in the difficulties of our lives, and you ask yourself, you may not say it out loud, but where is Jesus in all of this? I can't seem to find Jesus in this anymore. I'm here to remind you this morning and just encourage you that if these wise men could find Jesus, no matter the distance or the difficulty, no matter the distractions, that you and I or that loved one that you're praying for that you think will never come to faith in Jesus Christ, that there is a time and a season and a place for everything, and all we have to do is continue in the faith. And I'm telling you, if wise men can find Jesus, you and I can still find Jesus. Depends on where we look and how we look. As a matter of fact, one of the most interesting things about this first truth is not only the distance and the difficulty and all that, but it was just that this was just so different. Just so different. You see, we live in a religious era. You know that, right? We live in an era where it's 3 hymns, a poem, and maybe 3 points, say amen, and get to the steakhouse. All right? We live in a ritualistic, routine, even mundane society. And where it is greatest is in the religious circles, those that call ourselves Christians. We come and we go through the motion. And see, there's so often the reason we don't see Jesus in any of it is because we forget that Jesus did it different. There was nothing common about him. He was, as we've often heard said, an uncommon Jesus. He is still that way. He didn't come to a mansion. As a matter of fact, Herod, in his great self, had to call in the religious leaders. They asked where he would be born. They were not even looking for Jesus, if you read it in context. He sends those Gentiles, those pagans, to find Jesus. Even though he had ulterior motives, he didn't have good motives, he still sends them on their way. And I say all that to say this. Stop looking for God in the ordinary. Stop looking for God in the routine and in the rituals that we go through day and night. It doesn't matter if we do 5 songs, 1 song, we have a full band, or we just have a guy or a gal sing. It doesn't matter if I preach 5 minutes or 50 minutes. It doesn't matter if the kids lead or if they finish. It doesn't make any difference if a guy wears a suit or he wears jeans and sneakers. It doesn't matter if it's a well-lit building or a dim building. It doesn't matter if it's a cathedral or it's a shack on the side of a road that used to be a place, well, that they did landscaping out of. God does things in a different manner. And really, I've learned in my 39 years, well, since 1998 when I come to know him in a personal way, that the moment I think I have Jesus figured out, he'll shift on me. The moment I think that I've got it boxed and figured out, and this is how we do church, and pastor and team and trustees, this is the model, this is the mold, this is the way we do it, he'll shift on me in a second. If wise men can still find Jesus, you and I and your loved ones that you think can't find him can find him. We just got to be careful that we don't look for it in the ordinary, that we don't look for it in the routine, that we don't look for it in that strict way of doing it, you and your OCD self. For he was born in a manger, no room in an inn. These wise men found him, and if they could find him, you and I can still find him. He does things outside of the system. Aren't you glad that he does things outside the system? Because according to the system, let's be real. Well, I'll just keep it in my arena. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm glad he does things outside the system. The second abiding truth I see when I look at the encounter between the wise men, the Magi, and Jesus is not only could they find him, but the second truth is, if God can use a star to reach these pagan astrologers, then he can use anything to reach anybody. He can use anything to reach anybody. I did a little history. I did a little study. I may not come across as that kind of guy, but I love to study when it comes to this. Now, if you ask me to study something outside of those things I'm interested in, well, I barely made it out of college, so you go figure. All right? It's like music. I about flunked out of seminary because I couldn't pass music, all right? That's why I don't sing or play any instrument. Now, okay. Some would argue that this was, there's 3 major views of what happened in this setting for the wise men. So, some argue that it was a meteor explosion, an asteroid, some kind of explosion, this burst of light. Some even believe that it was something like Halley's Comet. And it lingered. As it went by, it was not as fast. Anyway. And then there's a couple more, but the one that I think that is really the biblical one, I believe, and lend to, and you can agree to disagree, and that's fine, is that it was just some supernatural illumination in the sky. Because it tells us in the story for Luke chapter 2, Charlie Brown's version, the Bible's version, that the glory shone around. You all right? I believe there was this supernatural, see, because he doesn't do anything in the system. He does things outside the system, and it would be something that you couldn't, if we could explain it, then we could explain it away, right? And so it's like he hung this light up there. And I don't know, some of you may be crushed because you thought that North Star up there, that twinkle, twinkle. I don't think it's a star like you and I can see with our eyes. I think there was this glow. I think there was this supernatural glow, this light that he hung in the heavens that led, and those that would look and those that would earnest. And he says that anyone that would desire, that would come after me, I won't hide myself from them, that they'll find me. And he hung this heavenly light. I don't know exactly how it looked, but I imagine the most brilliant, most beautiful light and this glow. I often think sometimes maybe it was this light. You ever seen where there's a circle around the moon? Anybody ever? I'm a little boy that still wants to be an astronaut, and so anyway, and so I still try to see the moon and look and all this good stuff. And it's just this glow, and it led them. Supernatural. And I began to think about that, and I began to think about just the day I was saved, the Easter Sunday I was saved. And I've told you this story, and it bears repeating just for the sake of in this moment. It's interesting that God can use anything to reach anyone. Man, he can use a song, he can use a star, he can use a book, he can use a tract, he can use a preacher, he can use anything. But I think about the Sunday I give my life to Christ. Easter Sunday, I've told you this story a million times. A million and one won't hurt you. And so they'd nag me, give me a hard time. I go to church on Easter. It's Easter, right? You're supposed to go to church, right? Christmas, Easter, supposed to go to church. And so I go to church Easter. United Assembly of God, they're putting on this production, Tragedy and Triumph. Really cool, man. I mean, first class as far as this redneck had ever seen. I mean, just first class, man. It was really cool. Big python snake. I mean, it was really, really cool. Jeff Hart broke in, and he was still doing sports then, and said that Bo had died, and it was just really cool, man. I'm dating myself a little bit. It was just really cool. But what was really, 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 really the cool thing, right, was when Pastor Reinhardt preached after the drama. I felt God working on my life, and I realized in that moment that this is the truth from my heart. I realized in that moment, that Sunday, 1998, that if I died that day, and listen, the lifestyle I was living, if I died in that moment, that I'd bust hell wide open. That's what I realized. I didn't go, woo, I want streets of gold, and I want angel wings and the harp, and I want to float on a cloud. Woo! I just realized, man, I'm going to hell. And no, they didn't have the building hot. It was nice and cool in the building. I just realized I was going to hell. I literally believed in a literal hell. I just, in that moment, I realized all those Bible schools that my grandmother and my mom had made me go to, and the little butter cookies and watered down Kool-Aid. I'm telling you, it just all went. And I realized. And then I want you to understand something, that God will use anything to save anyone. See, I was standing there. There was hundreds of people there, at least a couple hundred, I know. I mean, it was packed. And I've told you this story before, but see, I felt all those things, but I was yet to move. I was not, listen, I'm a dude, right? I am, trust me. And just see if you're listening. I wasn't going to move. I get it. I had something to get into that night. I get it. Next time, mate. Then Pastor Reinhardt, he flipped the script on me. And anybody else that was there that day. He said, all right, those of you that are saved, I want you to look to your left or your right. No, I want you to ask the person standing to your left or to your right. I can't remember which direction. I just remember the lady was standing on my right. So she looked to her left, of course. And I want you to ask them, do they need to go down? I still got the lady's name. It's in one of my pulpit commentaries, one of the 3 that I got out of the set. And she couldn't have been that tall. She just was this little old lady. And she looked at me, and I was much bigger then. I've come down from 320, I was a big guy. This little old lady looks up to me, and she goes, do you need to go down? And this is the truth under God. I thought to myself, I cannot lie in church. It's the one place I cannot lie. I can lie, man. I'm saying I was good too, right? Talk an Eskimo out of everything. I'm just lie. I said, I cannot lie. And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. And she said, well, come on. And I share that part of my story again with you to remind you that God can use anything to save anyone. I want you to stop a moment in your mind's eye and think about all the things that God has done or is doing to get your attention. If you have children now, it's amazing how God will speak to you through your children. No matter if they're biologically yours or not. He'll remind you. The friendly comment, pat on the back, might just have been the swift kick in the rump. Might have been that rude person that reminded you of what you don't want to be. You see, when I look at this encounter, I see a God that doesn't do the ordinary. I see a God that works outside of the system of mankind because he's God. He is the creator of mankind. I see a God that would move heaven and earth to save someone just like you and just like me and just like those pagan, star-worshiping wise men. What is he doing to get your attention? Or better yet, before I give you this last truth, what is he going to have to do to get your attention? Why wait that long? I've led him to the Lord on death's bed. First man I ever led to the Lord as a pastor. I had become pastor at Corinth Baptist Church in Westminster, backside of the desert. Miss Fricks, one of the charter members, little lady, she had to be 100 back then, I don't know. She's gone on to be with the Lord, the sweetest lady I ever met in my life. Never a cross word out of her mouth. She said, my son, Adger's down in the hospital. Gary Wilson had took me to visit as many people as he could, introducing me as a new pastor on Wilson's Processing in Richland. My son, he's real sick. Lived a hellish life. Now, she's 100, so you can imagine he's an older man, and he is. I go in the hospital room, I look over there, man, he is fighting for his life. Eyes full of blood. I don't know if you've ever looked in somebody's eyes. I'm talking about they're full of blood. You can barely see the pupil on death's door because everything had begun to shut down because of what he had done to his liver. I knew no one in that room except Gary Wilson, and I didn't know him but for a few weeks because he was the guy I first met when I called to me to preach, and he was the guy that took care of my family as they led me into their pastorate. But God got all over me as I entered that hospital room, and I went across the room. I said, excuse me, and moved people out of my way. Went to the other side of his bed, leaned in and said, God has sent me here to tell you if that you'll trust him, he'll save you and set you free. I didn't say get out of the hospital bed. He didn't know me from Adam. I'm going to tell you what he did. He said, I want to be saved. I'm talking blood full eyes and tears weeping out behind it, mixed, crying out to Jesus, truth unto God. Now, he'd go on to be with the Lord. But the next day I go to visit him in the hospital, truth unto God. God is my witness. I'd never seen a man look more healthy than I'd seen him the next day. Now, he'd go on to be with the Lord. He'd get sick, and God would take him on and heal him for eternity. But it was amazing what God would do to get your attention. Why wait to the last minute? You see, when I look at this, and you don't think about this at Christmas time, and again, I told you it wasn't that wise men still seek Jesus. I look at this and see, well, if they can find him, I can find him. And if they can find him, my brother can find him. And when they do find him, he'll do whatever it takes to save anyone, good, bad, or ugly. Last truth I see when I look at this encounter is probably the coolest thing of all. If wise men offer Jesus gifts fit for a king, then shouldn't we? I mean, in this moment, they're carrying these gifts with them. They're pagans. They're Gentiles. They're carrying gifts fit for a king. Now, what did they give? What's the three gifts? Class? All right, the students. You know, I trial run this sermon on the kids here Friday, right? The edited version. I did get it's the first time I preached in a while. I got the bell. It was time for them to go to class. It was good, though. They got it. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold, simple. Let me go through it real quick with you. You know it. Gold, the reason they brought gold, it was fit for a king, to honor him in his kingship. The reason they brought frankincense was because frankincense was used in the tabernacle worship. It was an incense that would burn. It would get off an aroma. So when they brought it, it was to symbolize his deity. When I say deity, that's just a big word to simply mean that he's God. They worship him as king, and they worship him as God. Then they brought myrrh. Strange one. It's a strange one. As a matter of fact, it says that when they went to bury Jesus, they took about 75 pounds of this with them. Myrrh, again, it's interesting that they would bring it to a several-day-old kid. But myrrh was to absolutely worship him in his destiny, because it was a spice that was used in burial. It was to help with the odor of the body and preserve the body. They did not embalm like we do today. They didn't have modern science and technology, and so they would wrap him in the linen. You understand, right? If you want to be real technical, he's born in swaddling clothes. He would go to the grave and anyway. And so they brought this and they worshiped him. Gifts fit for a king. So they wanted to identify him and worship him and say, you are our king. You are God Almighty in the flesh who's come to us. We found you. You've hung a star in heaven so that we could find you. We are in your presence and we worship you, and they give him gifts fit for a king. Let me ask you as we close. Right now, this moment, I don't mean what you have at home. I mean right now on you. If you were in the presence of God Almighty in a physical, literal sense, what would you give him? What would you give him? On you right now, what would you give him? You would say, you would be in awe. I mean, listen, he is light, his brilliance, his excellence. You would recognize him as Jesus, and you would say, I want to worship you, I want to give you, and you begin to search. What would you give him? I asked Sandra the other morning, I have to do this. I asked Sandra Friday morning before I took off to preach here at the high school over in the mini gym. And she's pondering and very literal. And she said, I don't know, I would probably have to cook him something. What would you give him? I told the kids that when she said that, I said, I've had you cooking. She didn't like that too good. But I didn't tell her I was just joking when I told her that. What would you give him? Your watch? It's a nice watch. It'll never stop working, will it? Tyler, no. I give him that. He's going to live for eternity. He is eternity. So I give him my watch. It'll go on for eternity. But wait a minute. He's Alpha and Omega. He's the beginning and end. He is time. He doesn't wear Timex or Rolex. I'll give him my new kicks. Some fly kicks, baby. I mean, I just got them. It's Christmas. You know what I'm saying? They ain't even got a scuff on them. May I submit to you that there is but one answer to that? And before you can get to that answer, you have to first realize you have nothing that you can give him. He don't need anything from you. He doesn't need your jacket. He needs your shoes. He needs your watch. He needs your necklace. He doesn't need your bank account. He doesn't need your nice new car. He doesn't need that bass boat. He doesn't need that four-wheeler. He doesn't need your house. He doesn't need your kids. I mean, I give him my kid. Take her with you. They already his. Can't give him something that he already owns. Yeah, but one thing that he wants. What does he really want? He wants your life. You see, I don't have anything gold. I don't have anything that would amount to anything this side. But what I do have in this life, well, I'll lay it at your feet. See, the Bible teaches us he's not interested in the gift so much as he is the giver. It's not in the sacrifice of the thing. It's the sacrifice in itself. So if the wise men could give him gifts fit for a king, and you and I, we really don't possess anything external that we can give him that is fit for a king, But the one thing that we have, that we hold so dearly to, is the one thing that he wants. And it's our life. You say, why should I give him my life? Because he gave his life so that you could have life. You ever been to one of those Chinese swap parties? I'll get your mind out. I'm talking about the Christmas Chinese swap party. Some of you going, wait a minute, I just got an email for an Asian bride. No, I'm not talking about that, you nut. No. God, this. Pastor Bradley, what we're going to do with him? Keep rotating around, trying to eyeball the best gift in there. It's just exchange, right? Or let's just say you're going to, this week coming, you're going to the family, and you know Uncle Jojo over there, he's going to give the same doggone sleeve of Thin Mints he's been giving for the last 15 years. You don't even like Thin Mints. This. And you went out of your way and bought something really nice, and he ends up with that. You see, as silly as all that is, greatest exchange you can make is to exchange lives. It's to say, here it is. I give you my life. And in exchange, this is what's cool. It's not those old Thin Mints. He gives you back his life, which is full of peace, joy, power, authority, courage in the face of fear, strength in spite of your weakness, magnified in your humility, where he says, if you will decrease and let him increase, if you will bow before him, he will exalt you. If you will humble yourself before him, he will exalt you. All he wants is your life. Now, for some of you, it's a first-time deal. You've never really confessed Christ as yours. Oh, you're good at playing church, but you've never exchanged lives with him. You've never swapped. You've never stopped and said, God, it's your life. You still think you're in control of your life. You still think that you can dictate what you're going to do and where you're going to go. My friend, you are sadly mistaken and only fooling yourself. For he is in control. And for some of you, you've given him your life. You've said, Christ, here I am. You've been born again. You've come through the watery grave. But I want to submit to you this morning, I'm talking about your entire life, in totality, everything. I'm talking about your attitude. I'm talking about, they say that one again, your attitude, because I struggle with that one. Your appetite. Your desires. I'm not talking about the sausage balls. I'm talking about your desires. I'm talking about inside here when it's just you and God. You see, you have not given him your life. You still have fleshly desires. You still try to fulfill the flesh more than you do the Christ that's inside of you. Give him your entire life. Give him your attitude. Give him your appetite. And then give him your actions. Actions should be last on the list. The way you act follows from having the God-centered attitude. The way you desire things comes from having the God-centered attitude, and the actions result because you have the God-centered attitude and appetite for life, and then you begin to act like Christ. If they could give him gifts fit for a king, then he's still worthy of gifts fit for a king, for he is still king. And all we have to offer is our life.